So you're 60 years old, you've saved $1 million for retirement, and you have the big questions. Can you retire? How much can you spend? How long will your money last? How do you pay less tax? And if something happens to you, will your family be okay? We're gonna go through all those different questions in this video, look at contingency planning, Social Security, taxes, income, all the things that I call the light bulb moment that turn on once you realize all of the decisions that you have to make and how they all interact with one another. We're gonna go through this situation with you today, so sit back and enjoy. Hi, I'm Troy Sharp, CEO of Oak Harvest Financial Group, certified financial planner professional, and host of the Retirement Income Show. Maybe you are close to retirement. Maybe you're a few years away and you're watching this video. Maybe you retired a few years ago. Either way, when I mentioned the light bulb moment in the beginning of this video, I want to take a second just to talk about what that is. It's the moment when you realize you're leaving the accumulation phase and you're going into the distribution phase, and all of a sudden you shift from the saving mindset to, oh my goodness, now I have to spend everything that I've saved my entire life. And then it starts to hit you. What if the market goes down? How much income should I take out of my portfolio? Oh my goodness, for the first time, wherever I take my income from, it impacts how much tax I pay. And what about not just this year? How do all of these decisions impact me over the next 20 and 30 years? And all of a sudden, you kind of feel like you're on an island all by yourself, and you understand how critical these decisions that you have to make are. That's the light bulb moment. So the purpose of this video is just to help you start to understand how all these variables interact with one another, and how making these decisions, coupled with other decisions that you have to make in retirement, how they all come together to provide you security, or the opposite could happen, put you into a position to where you jeopardize your ability to continue to maintain your standard of living. Light bulb moment, if you haven't got to that 2-3 year before retirement mark, or maybe you haven't even thought about it, it's yet to happen to you. Maybe you're about to retire and you're on YouTube searching for videos and this is why you're here watching this one, or maybe you understand exactly what I'm talking about because you retired a few years ago. Either way, you're gonna get a lot of information from this video, and I'm happy to share it with you. So first thing I wanna start out with are some of the parameters that I'm gonna go through for this hypothetical couple in this video. So husband and wife, both 60 years old. The question is, can I retire now? They've saved up $1 million. You know, they're tired of going to work. They don't want to sit in traffic. Can I retire? The next question typically becomes, well, if I do retire, how much money can I spend? And it's not just, can I spend that money? It's, can I maintain and sustain my standard of living while keeping up with inflation, and also having enough money later in life to ensure I don't run out and to pay for medical expenses. So in this example, we're going to look at what we call a go-go, slow-go, and no-go income plan. So this is a very, very common income plan that we'll develop for people. The go-go years is the first 10 years, from 60 to 70. We're going to look at taking $100,000 a year out. The slow-go years is from 70 to 78. Well, 71 to 78, taking $75,000 out, and then $50,000 from 79, this is a little infinity sign, until the end of life. Both husband and wife in this example I have living until age 90, but we can look at some different life expectancies as well. Okay, we're going to look at taking Social Security at different ages. Should we convert to Roth? Should we not convert to Roth? And then also some contingencies. What happens if the market crashes? What happens if I have a long-term care need? What happens if one spouse predeceases the other? If you've seen my video, the 4 things people don't tell you about retirement, one of the biggest planning mistakes, or at least things that we don't think about when it comes to retirement planning, is if one spouse predeceases the other spouse, we're going to lose a Social Security check. Most of us know that. But you go from the married filing jointly tax brackets into the single brackets. And oftentimes it can create a big increase in taxes, as well as a loss of income with that Social Security check going away. So we're going to look at some various contingencies. Again, my goal here is to simply get you thinking, start to connect those dots. We've sat with thousands of families over the years. I can't possibly go over every single situation there is out there. The main goal is just to get you thinking, get you to connect those dots and understand that Decisions have to be made, and there are consequences for these decisions, and oftentimes those consequences won't be realized until 10, 20 years down the road. All right, looking at these income goals again, because we're creating here a go-go, slow-go, no-go. Your go-go years, you're spending more. Your slow-go, you're slowing down, but you're still going out to dinner, you're still doing things. And the no-go, you're really just not going anywhere, maybe to the doctor's office, but you're spending a lot of time at home. Now, all of these numbers are going to inflate, meaning in 10 years, so the way we look at this is $50,000 is the base living expense number, then this $50,000 goes on top of it for a period of 10 times or 10 years. So it's $100,000 for the first 10 years. Then this one goes away, and now this one starts a $25,000 spending goal on top of the base expenses of $50,000. So all of these are going to inflate, meaning in today's dollars, this is what we want to be spending. But inflation erodes our purchasing power over time. So if we want to spend $100,000 a year, we need to be pulling a little bit more out each year to maintain our purchasing power in today's dollars. Now, we use a 2.25% inflation rate for this example. I know inflation in the economy is currently higher than that, but we don't anticipate that inflation to last for the next 20 to 30 years. As a matter of fact, the markets, if we look at the 10-year Treasury rate, which the bond market is a great kind of soothsayer, let's call it, of what inflation is expected to be in the future. The 10-year Treasury rate right now, as of recording this video, is at about 2.5%. That's the same rate as before COVID, the same rate when President Trump got elected, and also the same rate when President Obama got elected for his second term. So the markets are telling us that they do not expect inflation to be a serious consideration over the next several years. They do expect, like the Fed says, it to be more transitory. Now, that's what we're doing with inflation here. Okay, for Social Security, we're looking at this first example, both of them taking it at 67. We have John and Jane. John's is $36,000 a year. Jane's is $31,715. Investment accounts. So in Jane's 401k, she has $250,000. In John's, he has $700,000, and they have $50,000 here in savings. Now, something to point out here, most of this money is in what's called qualified retirement accounts. That means they've got a tax deduction for putting money into that account. But in retirement, every single time they need money, because they only have $50,000 in savings, they go to take it out, they're going to have to pay income taxes. Now, I would have liked to see a more diversified, what we call a tax diversified structure leading into retirement, meaning we're saving more in this after-tax bucket. Ideally, we have some money inside a Roth IRA. But this isn't bad. If you're in that $1 million range, 1.2, 800,000, somewhere around there, anything less than that, it's not as bad as if you have 2 or 3 million inside that 401k. That becomes a problem for taxes down the road. So this is actually fine. I'm good with this money being in the qualified buckets. But if it starts to get a significant amount higher, we definitely want more tax diversification. Okay, now we're going to look at the Monte Carlo simulation. So this runs 1,000 different simulations of various market returns. So that means one year might be plus 4%, plus 12%, minus 15, plus 18, minus 6, plus 9. That would be one simulation, that series of returns. We're going to look at 1,000 of those different simulations to calculate a probability that this couple retiring at age 60, spending $100,000 for 10 years, then $75,000 for 8, and then $50,000 indefinitely, plan expiration, both of them at age 90, and inflation at 2.25%. Keep in mind, all of this income is going to increase with inflation at that 2.25% annualized rate moving into the future. Okay, so this 1,000 simulations. A couple of things to point out here. First, it comes in at 80%. So 80% is in the green. It's not a horrible number. It's much better than 50 or 60, that's for sure. It's not 90, 95, 99 though. One big thing I want to note here, and just real quick, what this means is if you were to retire 1,000 times, in about 800 of them, you should be okay. You should die with money. The green lines, these represent a different simulation out of those 1,000. So if I click here, we die in this particular highlighted simulation with a little over $500,000 left. Here with 443, 873, a really good one, 1.7 million. Some of these simulations, that 20% we do run out down here. But here's a big takeaway in this example. In all of the simulations virtually, the assets are spent down in the beginning. So this puts us into a precarious position possibly if in these beginning years where the accounts are going down because we're spending more. Remember, this couple hypothetically is retiring at age 60. So they can't turn Social Security on yet. They have to pull from their retirement accounts. They're going to have to pay taxes on those withdrawals. So we actually have to pull out more than 100 in this spending goal scenario. And we're very vulnerable to the sequence of returns risk. Okay, again, if you're new to the channel, the sequence of returns risk is the combination of taking income out of your portfolio with market losses. If you take out 5% and the market goes down 15, you're down 20%. So where your 1 million goes to 800,000. But to get that same level of income the following year, you have to now take $100,000 out, but you only have 800 grand left. So it's a higher percentage that you must take out. That's the sequence of returns risk. If you lose money in the first few years, you significantly reduce the probability of success in retirement. So I want to talk a little bit about Roth conversions now. Because this couple has all of their money inside retirement accounts, there's really no excess cash outside besides that 50 grand in savings to pay the taxes on any Roth conversion. Additionally, because they're retiring younger, they're forced to withdraw more money from the portfolio. In this particular situation, I probably would not advise any Roth conversions, even though all their money is inside that tax-infested retirement account. The reason is, if we do a conversion, we have to write the government a check. One, it'd have to come out of the 401k or the IRA, so we have to take more out, pay taxes on that, send it to the government, whatever's left, to pay tax on the conversion. But we're taking more money out of the account, which leaves us less to earn interest on. We're already in a vulnerable position here if the market goes down. Hey, real quick, while we're on the subject of taxes, we're going to be doing a live stream on this channel when President Biden passes his new tax legislation. This is going to be a game changer for retirement. It really, truly is, I believe. We're going to go through the legislation. We're going to use our resources. We're going to consolidate it down to bite-sized pieces, what is going to impact you. But to attend that live stream, you have to subscribe to the channel. So make sure to subscribe. So in this particular scenario, this says, you know what? I probably would not recommend Roth conversions for this particular couple. Now, if we have a really good year in the markets and the accounts go up 200,000-300,000 this year, next year, the following year, and we're sitting at 1.5, and now they're a little bit older, okay, very possibly we're going to relook at that. We're going to relook at it every year, but that may put us into a position where it makes more sense to do a Roth conversion. Now, another reason why I wouldn't be worried about Roth conversions for this particular couple is, even though you have $1 million in this example, one of the big reasons you consider Roth conversions is because you have so much in the retirement accounts that once you get to RMD age, which is 72, required minimum distributions, you're forced to start taking money out of that account and pay taxes on it. That can put you into a very high income tax bracket, much higher possibly than you were in the working years. If you also have a pension, if you have any rental income, if you have a significant source of other income from other places, having a lot of money inside retirement accounts can put you into very high tax brackets when RMDs start. It's a little under 4% that you must distribute at 72, but it goes up from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 as you age throughout your 70s, 80s, and into your 90s. So if we look here, this hypothetical example, their taxes aren't huge. These aren't killer taxes. Now, of course, we have some pending tax changes upcoming with some legislation. This is looking at the current tax code. If they keep their word in Congress and not raise taxes on people in this income range, it shouldn't be a big deal for this family down the road. So we see, if we extrapolate out into the future or look out, their taxes, they're not huge. This isn't anything as a financial advisor, as a retirement planner, that I'm ultra concerned about. I'd much rather keep the money in the account earning interest instead of writing checks for conversions and sending it to the government, because they are already in a vulnerable position retiring young. So not a big deal here. Okay, now I want to look at a graphical representation of the spending goal compared to the Social Security income and identify the shortfall. This is a very important step when we're income planning. We have to not only identify the shortfall, of course, but we have to identify what is the best financial tool to generate that cash flow, which tax bucket should it come from, your IRAs or your non-IRAs, generally speaking. But the first step in doing all of that is identifying where the shortfalls are. So this is the inflation-adjusted go-go, slow-go, no-go spending income plan. And we see it starts at 100,000 because of inflation. It gets up to 120. Slow go years, 70 or 71 this starts for this couple. Still increasing with inflation. And then the no-go years where they're not going anywhere. Social Security. Okay, this is the only source of secure income we have in the plan for this family. We see Social Security. Remember, I said it's going to start at age 67 for both spouses. It represents a pretty good chunk of the income, especially on these out years, but they're not taking it for 6.5, 7 years in this example. So one of the big challenges here are the shortfalls in the beginning. This is why they get into a vulnerable position, because in order to spend more in the go-go years and retire at 60, they have to pull more money out of the portfolio. So we're pulling out, we have the shortfall here, pretty substantial shortfall. So typically what I'll see if someone comes in to sit down with me or one of our advisors, we're doing planning for a case like this, almost 70-80% of the time the family's going to say, Troy, I'm just going to take Social Security sooner. And theoretically that makes sense because you're going to take Social Security, which is going to reduce the need for portfolio withdrawals. And truth of the matter is, for some people that is the right strategy. For others it's not. It just, so many different pieces interacting together really requires this type of in-depth analysis. But I just wanted to point out here the shortfalls before I jump into the Social Security analysis to let you know where the shortfalls are. Again, if we look at these numbers, they're pretty big, especially in the first couple of years. Now for the Social Security analysis. So we're going to look at cumulative income received if they make it until life expectancy, but also comparatively speaking, what are the annual income numbers received if they take it early versus full retirement age. No need in this example to wait until 70 because they're retiring early, only have $1 million. They're definitely going to take it at 62 or 67 or somewhere in between. So here are the probabilities, just to be quick about this. It's actually, and I don't see this often, 82% across the board as far as probability of success, no matter if they take Social Security at 62 or 67. One thing to point out, they take it at 70, it drops to 58%. Now that means 58% of the time they're going to not run out of money, but 42% of the time they would run out of money and only be left with Social Security later in life. That's not a good thing. Now, annual income and cumulative income received versus taking it at 62 versus 67. For John, $25,200 versus $36,000. And then for Jane, $22,200 versus $31,715. $1.374 million received from Social Security from 62 until 90. $1.625 million received from Social Security from age 67 until 90. This assumes they both make it to 90. Now, a couple of things to consider. First, if one spouse predeceases the other unexpectedly, the smallest Social Security check goes away and the family is left with the larger of the two. If one spouse is unhealthy or not expected to live as long, or one spouse is expected to live much longer, it may make sense to do some combination strategy here where the highest earning spouse with the largest Social Security defers as long as possible. That way, if he passes away, that higher Social Security check will stay in the family. Now, that's one thing to consider. The second thing to consider here is in the real world, when we're sitting down with you and going through and doing a review, let's say you retire at 60, one of the things we're going to be talking about when we sit down and do reviews is what is the portfolio doing? What is the forecast for the economy? What is your entire situation? What are you actually spending? We track this progress over time in this plan, and our clients actually have access to the plan digitally. So we'll sit down and we'll talk to you about it. So in the real world, if the portfolio is up 30 or 40%, let's say over a 3 or 4 year period, and we hit 62 and you're not very aggressive with the portfolio. For example, let's say we felt good about things, we decided to tilt it a little bit more aggressively in the beginning years of retirement. We say, you know what, maybe let's defer Social Security because that's a guaranteed lifetime income and a guaranteed growth to that payment, and let's take some of those profits out of the portfolio. That reduces the risk. Let's reduce your equity exposure and let Social Security defer 1 more year. So in the real world, it's not just about the math. It's about so many other things. And this is, again, the light bulb moment. Once you start to realize all the decisions that you have to make and all of the variables out there, we can never make 100% the best decision 100% of the time. We have to make the best decision as frequently as we can, but looking at all of these different variables and then talking it out and having a conversation. It's not retirement planning, financial markets, taxes, income, all this stuff. It's not necessarily always black and white. There's a lot of gray. This is why working with someone who understands these nuances can help provide better information so you can make a more intelligent decision. All right, now we're going to look at what is called the play zone. So our clients love this because they can actually log in and start to move this little slider around, especially if they're not retired, and see the impact of working 1 more year or retiring 1 year sooner. So what I'm going to do now is, let's say John says, you know what, I don't hate my job and I don't really know what I would do if I retired. I think I'll probably go to 62. Well, all these same variables that we've looked at, it jumps now from 82% up to 96%. Now let's say John absolutely doesn't want to work anymore. He's fed up, he hates his boss, he doesn't like the commute, he just is tired. 82, I'm not comfortable with that. I like to have a little bit higher. What if in the go-go years we target spending $95,000 for the first 10 years? Okay, that jumps it up to 90. Okay, well, what if we then couple that with reducing our slow-go spending? Okay, now I'm up to 95. Now John's feeling pretty good about pulling the cord and retiring. All we had to do was connect him to what his spending meant for his portfolio longevity and show that, hey, if we just plan on spending somewhere between that 90 to 95,000 range instead of 100, much more comfortable probabilities. Now, in the real world, again, we tend to find people spend more money in the first couple years of retirement. This is typical. But then it will also typically reduce. No one's going to spend exactly $100,000 a year for the next 10 years. This is why it's so important to be connected to your money, to do reviews, to have a relationship with a financial advisor who understands retirement. We're going to do this analysis every single year when we have conversations with you. This is what our job is. The market goes down. The market does really, really well. We can spend more. We may have to spend less. All of these pieces are connected. Now we're going to look at a really cool feature, and this is, what are you afraid of? So we get this all the time. So most of our clients just simply don't want to see their portfolio go like this throughout retirement. They want steady, predictable streams of income coming from multiple different places, increasing income sources. The market crashes, they don't want to lose 40 or 50% of their money. But they're also concerned about taxes and inflation and long-term care. So this module right here, we're going to look at, what are you afraid of? So let's say we're wrong about inflation. Okay, the bond market, as I said earlier, is telling us that inflation long-term is not a concern. That's what the bond market's telling us. But Congress is spending a whole lot of money. The Federal Reserve has printed trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Maybe we're wrong, maybe the bond market's wrong. What happens to this plan if inflation goes up to 3.25 from the 2.25? Well, this is the problem for this particular plan. Now, everything that we had earlier in the play zone where we reduced that spending, possibly worked a little bit longer, those changes are not affecting this right here. We're still at that 82% probability, the base case. But again, this assumes that inflation is 3.25 now and remains that way indefinitely until plan expiration. But I do want to show the power of inflation, how that can destroy the purchasing power and reduce the probability of success for your retirement. What if, this is one we hear a lot, Social Security gets cut. Let's say your benefits get reduced by 15%. It drops it to 62% in this particular example. Now, I do not believe your Social Security is going to be reduced. I guess it is possible if you are in this means tested category that Congress may come up with in the future. Let's say if you have X amount of dollars or if you have this amount of income, maybe they'll say you don't need your Social Security. With some of the things that we have pending in this tax legislation right now in the reconciliation bill, I wouldn't doubt it, honestly, if that's a consideration down the road. I would assume it's not going to impact the majority of people in retirement. So just my gut, most of you probably do not have to worry about Social Security cuts, but it's something that could happen. Okay, low returns. This is the biggest one I think most people are in jeopardy of, because in retirement, once you cross, it's like a line of demarcation. Once you cross over from the accumulation phase and you enter the distribution phase, the retirement years, volatility in the market, again, this is from my experience working with thousands of families over the course of my career, we get more sensitive to volatility. The average investor tends to make bad decisions with their portfolio. Selling at the wrong time can cause your portfolio to lose 10, 15, 20% of its value that it otherwise would have. Extrapolated out over many years, we could very easily see a reduction in average returns of 1%. Drops it to 73%. One of the worst things we can do is allow the news, the noise out there, dictate what we do with our investment portfolio. We don't have crystal balls, and there's so many emotions tied into investing. If you take your money out every time the market drops 5% because you're scared of it going down 30%, you're making mistakes, you're costing yourself money long term, and you probably shouldn't be in stocks. Probably shouldn't. What happens if you die early, live long? Let's say John dies at 79, but Jane lives to 94. It's not good. Drops it to 53%. That's one Social Security check going away. Now, again, in the real world, we would adjust for Jane the spending, keep her connected to the portfolio, make sure that she understood how much she could spend, and also it's just being connected. That's the big thing in that particular moment. Long-term care, home health care, these expenses are a big concern for our clients. So if we stress test it for home health care, long-term care, let's say John passes away naturally, no need for long-term care, but Jane does have a concern that at age 85, she may need, let's say, $84,000 a year, $7,000 a month. Probability drops to 66%. So these are some of the let's call it a sensitivity analysis or contingency test to determine how some of these variables that we're just looking at as statics throughout the plan, generally speaking, how any one individually, or we can look at a combination of these at the same time, how they impact your retirement plan. So everything that we do on these videos, everything we do with clients, when we're looking at this type of analysis, it's very important to keep in mind that it's just a snapshot in time. Next year, everything's going to look a little bit differently. Your portfolios will have changed. You will have spent different levels. Even emotionally, things may be different as far as our goals and what we're trying to accomplish, our belief in the markets, etc. So we have to stay connected. This is what retirement planning is about. It's not just, here's your plan, see you later, manage the investments. It's not a retirement plan. That's not helpful. That's not anything that anyone should do. I hope you enjoyed today's video, got into some of the nuances, some things that we have never covered before. If you have any questions, comments, put them down below, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.